Unlock the full potential with your business with Leadershipity. Our proven strategies have fueled growth for countless organizations. Ready to elevate your leadership and scale your success? Book your free 15-minute consultation now. Click the link in the show notes below and let's make your business soar.
This whole social media thing, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but it's, found it interesting. It seems like probably back in the day when we were growing up, the athletes were revered and they're just the top notch and everything else. But it's almost in a sense because of social media that some of these athletes are almost getting bullied, which is crazy. But here's these athletes that have always been like everybody looked up to them, where now because people can hide behind that social media, they can say stuff. And it's scary because I've seen there was that one that we talked about, I think on another episode, Trent, but like that one college softball player, she just was doing fantastic, player of the week, player of the month, and she ended up taking her life. And it's sad and it's scary. And so that's kind of the downside of some of the social media and even the NIL stuff is it. And I think you brought up before, Cliffy, about just the resiliency of some of these athletes, but there's challenges for them too. I mean, they might get all this hype and they seem like they're doing fantastic, but they're not. So we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that there's people out there. And if they need help, they look for it. Don't take it for granted. Welcome to NIL for You. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, where we've created a platform for alumni, athletes, and other alumni to network and connect and just do a lot of different things on there. I'm also a host of Athletes Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey, where we talk about athletes transitioning out of sports and to teach and inspire athletes that there is, in fact, life after sports. And on this show, we cover a lot of different topics. It's all about NIL for education, but always excited to introduce my co-host, Coach Trent.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Excited to be another show of NIL for You. Super excited about today. We're going to bring some fun stuff on NIL. We are coming off into the new year of 2024, end of 2023. So there's just lots going on in the NIL space, and it's bowl season, right? Which that welcomes in our special guest, James Clifford. What's up, Cliffy?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Man, excited to have Cliffy on board. Cliffy, real quick, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, where they can find me. They can find me a lot of different places, I guess. What do you mean by where they can find me? Google find me.
Where they can get a hold of you. They want to talk to James Clifford. They can find you on LinkedIn. They can email you.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn for sure. LinkedIn. My daughters have helped set me up with some of the other things, but I think if you search me, you'll be able to find me.
All right. So James Clifford, Cliffy, as we all know him well, and he and I have been colleagues for a long time. Cliffy's a longtime strength coach in professional baseball, played linebacker at the University of Washington, and of course, we're pretty excited right now. Your Washington team looks pretty flipping good right now. And probably actually by the time this thing airs, it will be decided, are they a national championship or not? And so super excited about that. So that'll be like hanging in the balance that we're all like forthright, hopeful for you, but to see how that goes this weekend.
Extremely excited for that. I mean, I'm actually, I'm in Arizona right now, but tomorrow morning I'm heading down to Houston and going down there with a bunch of the old boys, and we're going to get together and hopefully watch a national championship for Washington, which in all honesty, it's 32 years ago that I played in a 91 national champion game. And it's actually the Rose Bowl against Michigan. We dismantled Michigan 32 years ago. And it's weird. 32 years later, going to Houston to watch, hopefully, the Huskies do it again.
Okay, so in what year was that? 91?
91.
At the Rose Bowl. That was the national championship, because I remember going to the Rose Bowl for a national championship with Michigan and Washington State one year, which was pretty flipping awesome. That was an awesome game. That was the Ryan Leaf days. Did you play against Ryan?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
This is probably a little bit. He was after you, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, you're looking good, by the way, man. 31 years ago. What's up? Following your own advice of taking fit, you got those pro athletes on top of their game, and now you got you on top of your game.
Cliffy, can you still play? You suit them on up or no?
You know what? I cannot. I mean, honestly, but my football days and all my baseball time, I just had a knee replacement actually about 13 months ago. Doing great though.
Oh wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
all right. So you're not going to be 12th man this weekend.
I am not.
Okay. So all right.
I'll be
Super
cheering.
excited to welcome. Now Cliffy is an entrepreneur involved with Schmitty's Herbal Snuff, which is really cool brand. This is basically a chew tobacco alternative, if that's fair to say. Energy products, CBD. You guys done a lot of different things in the space for dippers to get out of that nicotine, get out of some bad habits, some addiction and addictive traits there. But there's challenges in that business. Is that fair, Cliffy?
Yes, for sure. For sure. I mean, I look at it, it's simple. And it's Miserable Snuff. We're basically a tobacco cessation company. We would like to give people an alternative out of the, let's just say, 90 million smokeless tobacco users out there. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of those want to quit. They just really don't have a good alternative. So what we're doing with Schmitty's, it's tobacco free, it's a tea based, it's nicotine free. Yet you're getting the same ritual, the same mouth feel. We do have an energy blend also, so you can get some sort of stimulation, like basically a cup of coffee, and going to give the guys something. But it's I've been in wellness my whole life, right? Trent, a lot of us have. Everybody here is trying to help people. After 30 years with the Mariners, and both as a player and then trying to build up young men to reach their goals, to help the organization and help that individual. I've always tried to help people. So when I got out of the game, I was looking for something to continue that trend of really trying to help people in the world. Not just physically, but even mentally and emotionally, and those around them. Because I promise you one thing: those 40 to 60% of dippers out there that want to quit, there's 100% of their wife's, girlfriend's, loved ones that want them to quit and basically kick that habit. So that's how I got involved with Schmitty's. I'm excited about it, and it's nice to continue to try to make a difference and help people.
Yeah, Rob, did you know that 90 million people were tobacco users? That's a huge number, man. Like
No,
in our
is it
country
90?
alone,
Is it
that'd be
90?
over a quarter.
Did you say 90 million tobacco or or the smokeless tobacco?
Any smokeless tobacco, nicotine type of users.
Wow.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. All right. So, Rob, let's hit some headlines.
Yeah, that sounds good.
First one up, Michigan State alum launches campaign for Maddie Sissoko's foundation to help Home Village. Walk us through a little bit of this one.
Yeah, it was interesting. So, we've talked about this in other episodes. So Maddie is a foreign student. So international students cannot partake in NIL. So he doesn't have the ability that his U.S. teammates have. However, what he did is he set up a 501c3 nonprofit and under his name, foundation. And what he's doing is he's giving back to the children in the town where he's from in his home community. Talk a little bit about, him and his brother having to, drive miles and miles away to play basketball in their home country. And now in his hometown, they've added basketball there based on his contributions.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a little bit of the Michigan State game last night, and Sissoko is, amazing kid, West African village, right? This kid grows up walking an hour to school with no shoes, right? Bad, an hour both ways, right? This is what education, how we're so hungry for that. We forget how blessed we are in our country, right? And man, and then you think about like the Breslin Center going crazy and how much just money around that program and the education and Michigan State and all that's going on. It's amazing. And here's a kid who's just like, hey, I want other kids from these humble beginnings to have the opportunities that I've had. And so this alum helps him. And man, that's a pretty good feel good story. That's NIL for good all the way right there. Cliffy, you're seeing these kids now that are really just heartfelt. It's not all about them, and I'm loving that position. What did you see here?
I mean, it's just that it's touching. It's great. I mean, I think when you look at what matters in the world right now today, and everybody just sees things and they're looking for the best thing for themselves normally, and to see something like this, I really feel that the sense of humanity and caring, it should touch everybody. It should bring everybody together. I love that, and hopefully other people will see that as an example and maybe do something like that themselves.
Yeah, amazing, right? And so
Yeah.
Indiana institutionally has done very well. We've talked about the Hoosiers for Good collaboration. Like they have a Hoosiers for Good collective, which is amazing. So they have two collectives on campus, Hoosiers Connect and Hoosiers for Good, and they do a holiday fundraiser where they raise $2 million. What do you think, Robbie?
Well, what the point there too is they raised $1 million themselves, but then there was an anonymous donor who matched it and put another $1 million in, and it's crazy that they could do, and it puts them in a good position. We were talking offline before. Is just these schools are more and more just the whole NIL horizon are needing to raise a lot of money through these collectives in order to be competitive with other schools.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, raised, a $500,000 in under 48 hours from 641 people. If someone steps up, obviously an anonymous donor, and matches the $1 million they raised in for Indiana. And I love this. Really, they have a great deal, Cliffy. We've kind of covered these. They have everyone on every team. At least one player has signed up for Hoosiers for Good. So they're all donating to about, what do you think, Rob? Maybe 10 to 15 charities that they've all designated. And so when certain amounts of NIL money are made, it goes to that. So pretty cool concept there at for Hoosiers leading the way.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so let's go to Juju Watkins, the freshman out at USC. One thing that's pretty cool about the Women of Troy star Juju is she's got a Nike partnership. So I think when we look about Watkins, best player, they're saying outside of Caitlin Clark, pretty impressive as a freshman, went to high school with Bronny James. So, it's pretty cool that these kids are now growing up around athletes, investments, giving back, endorsements. How do I carry myself? What do the people want? Using that platform for a lot more than just their sport. What do you see here, Rob?
Yeah, and what she also did, the platform, like she came from some of the rougher neighborhoods in LA, and she wanted to give back to those communities. So she gave back. It was like Crenshaw, and I'm trying to think of some of the other schools there, but basically through Nike, they gave a bunch of shoes to these different kids in need, which was fantastic. And I don't know if Bronny had anything to do with that or it was all her, but it's nice to see again, not just all about the money, but how they want to give back to the communities.
Yeah, I like this good juju holiday give back. Cliffy, we've been in these environments in LA, played obviously there a lot. So you're in there and there's so many quality athletes that are coming out of these low socioeconomic impacted areas. And it's so nice to see that the kids actually have an opportunity to not only get a hand up and pull them up into something, but also some education around what's out there and what's possible. You've seen a little bit, because in baseball, we see these environments, right, where athletes come from everywhere, right? And what I love about baseball is the melting pot of now 15 countries and how many languages, and it's really changed the dynamic of things in the clubhouse.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think going back to the whole college thing. I will again, I'm going to take myself back a bunch of years, but I played with a lot of players from inner city, LA, Crenshaw, Longpole. I mean, all these all these schools, and I'll never forget where guys that wanted to maybe take a girl to a movie. Let's just say they're in their first 2 years of just their basic scholarship. The first 2 years you had to live on campus, right? You had to eat on campus. You didn't get really any money in your hand at all, even housing or living money. It was all kind of your cat card to go, and you go with that. So I remember guys not even able to say, "Hey, I want to take this girl I just met to dinner and a movie on Friday night," and they had no money. They had nothing, and because their family, they came from a situation where they just didn't have anything, and I remember that, and me being from Seattle originally and living up there and being at Washington, I was able to really my family. I was blessed, I guess. I got what I needed. I didn't always get what I wanted, but I pretty much got what I needed. And being local, I was able to bring a lot of just our team over and kind of adopt them as part of my family. My grandpa was an amazing man, and he used to have the whole defense over once a month for a big salmon feed. He was fisherman too, so we try to do that. But nowadays, especially a thing like this, to to not only does the NIL give the kids an opportunity to maybe have a little bit more of a life and improve their even like mental health because they can do things, but also the I guess the getting into the business and understanding business a little earlier, I think is really going to help athletes as they go forward in life because we all know a lot of them don't make it.
Yeah.
As they go and they're learning from people are getting put in their lives that are teaching them, maybe how to use this money the right way and how to continue to grow it and to help other people, which is very commendable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. I mean, it's a great walk back of how things used to be. And I don't know that it's not that same way still, Cliffy, in the fact that, if you're an inner city athlete playing in a non-revenue sport, you could still be in that. There's not a lot of NIL opportunities all the time. You're going to have to work for those opportunities. And, if you're playing on the field hockey team and you came from, you're probably have good things in place to cover your expenses, but there's just not a lot of cash exchange. And I think actually nowadays that they're doing this bonus, they call it this bonus at college, where it's to help you get back and forth from school and a little bit, and kids to manage some money. And I think it's good that they have that now, even if you're in a sport where you're getting all the advantages of free education and housing, and that's a wonderful thing. I'm never going to discount that scholarship aspect because it's big. But it does matter that you're able to do something socially, right? That you just can't have zero cash value, because if you're a full-time scholarship athlete, so for a long time you were unable to work. So that was a restriction for many years. So let's bounce into this one, Rob, because you brought this one, and I thought this one it's going to be intriguing to watch.
Yeah, so it's talking about just NIL in 2024, the year of donor fatigue, and so many people now are giving to these different collectives, but now all of a sudden, we're not getting to pay for play per se, but I think these collectives are looking at like, if the teams aren't doing well, are they going to want to continue to give money? And then they've got the athletic department now saying, no, hey, you got to give us money to be competitive. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic of what's going on in that space. What's your thoughts on that, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the donor fatigue. I mean, I think there's a lot of fatigue in certain areas that are happening, right? Where we found and we latched onto some things, and it's challenging. In my world, right? We have a high-end leadership development coaching firm, a growth coach company, and man, I mean, the noise in coaching is very loud. So now all of a sudden this noise and donor and what we need, and we got to go, we'd like to sign Cliffy. He's the best high school player ever. If someone can just send us $500,000, like what? Like, holy cow, man. Like, I don't know how it's going to look, but the optics are definitely looking pay to play, especially with this portal, kind of what people are being offered inside it to go into it, and again, we've mentioned this before. I always caution on the fact that, literally 2/3 of people that enter the portal don't come out, right? They don't get an opportunity. So the portal's not all win-win for everybody. And there is a high, a fraction of the top percent that do make some NIL money out of that. But that is not the standard. Cliffy, what's your take on this donor fatigue? I mean,
I think fatigue's the wrong word. I would say it might be the year of donor frustration. I think the donor side of it, I think it almost, a lot of them will feel more entitled to have a say. Believe me, we can empower people all the time, and whether it be in sport, whether it be in politics, whether it be just on social media.
At church, the big donor at church, like, hey, we should do this with my money, right?
Yeah, and all of a sudden, it becomes, instead of a group thing or to a university thing, or it becomes a singular thing about the donor themselves. And there needs to be some caution in that and understanding, but it's a true thing. There's always been donors, right? It just now the players are getting some of that, which is great. So there's always been our boosters that are the main ones that get more access, that end up on our team planes, that do things. But now there's more people involved, and they feel like they can make that difference. So donor frustration. Everybody wants to win, right? And we should want to win. Every game I've ever played, I've won one. We want to win. So I get it. But at the same time, I think we need to understand it. And it's not put people back in their place, but really just make them feel part of it. and I guess, go on from there. And hopefully they're able to keep that NIL going for that university, because it is it is frustrating, but it's a little scary, right? All of a sudden, one university, they shut them down, and how's that going to affect them going forward?
Yeah, no doubt. Let's look at this last one. University of Missouri, Mizzou, the School of Journalism team up on the NIL branding program. Kind of great. Now we got the students involved, helping athletes, learning marketing, branding. I mean, this is fabulous for me, Rob.
Yeah, it's great. I think just to, now, NIL, the focus has been all the money and everything going to these athletes, but the fact that they could, bring in other college students and give them the experience to, help with the marketing, the branding, the social media, they're learning, and they're also helping these athletes out, or helping the schools programs out, which I just think it's fantastic. It's another, I guess it's almost like another internal internship per se, where these marketing students are working together with the athletic department.
I think it's kind of cool because I see it like building fans, Cliffy. Like, I can imagine some young lady who's never gone to a Washington Husky football game assigned to James Clifford, and all of a sudden she's helping you with social media. You're getting to know her, and she's like, wow, I think I want to go to the game Saturday and see how James does, because, I've been following this guy, and let me find out what it's all about. I'll be better at my job because I know what actually he has to go through now, and get this intimate look and going. I think there's some barriers that break down of like, oh, athletes get all everything, and like, oh, follow me for a day as I've got 12 hours of commitment today, right? Class, this video review, a workout, practice, training table, back to study hall, another class. And like, yeah, hey, it's so easy to be an athlete. And like, whoa, I have a new perspective of the athletes. I think this is like win-win for learning skills for both sides.
I totally agree. I second that, and is very well said. It's perfect. I think it's a great thing, and like you said, it's bringing more people into the bubble, right? In all different areas.
All right, let's cut out for a little bit. Let's come back to Cliffy. Let's talk a little bit about. First, I want to talk a little bit about your year in base. As a college athlete transitioning from college. Obviously, you dated yourself there about how long ago you were in that national championship, by the way. And I'm with you, by the way. So yeah, I've got no argument, bro.
I'm even longer than you guys.
Oh, are you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you were on the Blue Hens track team in '71.
Yeah, that's it. I was in the Rich Gannon years of Blue Hens.
The Rich Gannon years. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Rich Gannon. Wow.
I will say one thing, if I can jump in real quick before we move on to that. I do want to, on the NIL standpoint, I do think right now in college sport, student athlete, I think there's I wouldn't say mental health concern, but I would say like a resiliency concern right now in mental resiliency and how they're identifying and where they identify themselves at. So I think the NFL thing, NIL can help it in regards to making somebody like believe that they're who they are, their worth. At the same time, I think it can accelerate a feeling of non-resiliency, and that I'm not maybe worthy. So I think it's really interesting of what's going on in the sport. And I'm not talking about your starters. I'm not talking about your big prospect guys, because most of them are very resilient. They know who they are and what they want to be. It's a lot of the other sports that are and other, maybe the backups, the scout team guys, or the guy that, the starting pitcher that gets hurt, how they feel about how they identify who they are as a human. And I do think there's in college sport right now that with the academic sport demand, people don't get it. Like you just mentioned it, and what really goes into that. And when people start feeling like they're not part of that group, if they're not the starter, or their classes, or they're failing some classes, or they're having a hard time in school, and you don't feel resilient or know who you are, I guess, even though you're not the starter, I think that really opens up that transfer portal, I don't think it's a good thing in that regard, because it lets people, these kids, feel like, okay, I don't feel like I belong here. And instead of us going, why is that? Why aren't we making them feel? Because I know I'm not identified just through playing football, or what I'm identified, my relationship with the Lord, my family, my, everything I do. So I just wanted to bring that up, because to me, it is an issue. And the NIL, the one, this guy got this much money, this woman didn't get, got that much money. It can start weighing on how resilient people are also. So it's just something I want to be aware of and make sure everybody understood. It is something out there.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important thing, and talking about, we've had a couple tips of the week, and a couple of weeks back, we talked about there's a lot of things on social that aren't positive, right? And man, I think about this every fall because it feels like there's probably 15 kids that are kicking field goals who are the bane of the campus, for one day on a Saturday, right? It's the final game, and all of a sudden, all the alumni are upset. Like, how do you miss a 48-yarder? Like, hey, have you ever kicked one? Of course, they're making it look easy. I mean, this new guy for the Cowboys is driving me crazy. He makes it look so easy, it's dumb, and so it's a challenge, and it's a matter of who you are and being grounded in that. I think it's really important, and I think kids are, it's at that age where you're learning kind of who you are, and maybe you don't know yet. And I do think there's challenges in that. I definitely think there's plays, and I'm definitely worried about kids starting to look at all the comments after a bad day on the field or the court or anything else on the ice, and didn't go their way. And hey, how come she doesn't play defense? We need to find somebody else. Yeah. She should enter the portal, and all the crap that fans want to say. And I'm always going back to what my mama taught me, which was you got nothing good to say, don't say nothing at all, right?
Yeah.
And you wish that were true sometimes on the social, because there feels a lot of boldness behind that phone or behind that computer. A lot of boldness of what people say, and it's not always the healthiest thing. And there's definitely, I'm always wondering, Cliffy, too, about the discrepancy in, the high earners, man. I mean, we saw this in pro sports. You have league minimum players, and you have players making $25 million a year, right? Like it's there's a gap, and people know who they are and where they're at, and they may want to be somewhere else, and they're driven for a different contract and a different agreement. But at college, when you're young, you may not understand that, and a few of the players get a lot of money. But one of the things I really enjoyed when NIL came out in the first year was like the 12th guy on the team at the University of Michigan basketball team was the highest earner, right? Adrian, I forget his name, Adrian something, and Adrian and his girlfriend, big TikTok stars, Instagram stars, and they were both making, I think, $1 million a year, and nobody playing on that basketball team was getting the kind of money, but he had the 3.5 million followers. So it's actually kind of neat that someone can have some success, maybe somewhere else in some other area that's very positive, that's not necessarily tied to the full success of the team all the time. And so it's an interesting dynamic. Rob, what you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, this whole social media thing, I mean, you guys kind of touched on it, but it's, what found it interesting is it seems like probably back in the day when we were growing up, the athletes were revered and just, I mean, they're just the top notch and everything else. But it's almost in a sense because of social media that some of these athletes are almost getting bullied, which is crazy. But here's these athletes that have always been everybody looked up to more now because people can hide behind that social media. They can say stuff, and it's scary because I've seen there was that one, and we talked about, I think, on another episode, Trent, but that one college softball player, she just was doing fantastic, player of the week, player of the month, and she ended up taking her life. And it's sad and it's scary. And so that's kind of the downside of some of the social media and even the NIL stuff is it. And I think you brought up before, Cliffy, about just the resiliency of some of these athletes, but there's challenges for them too. I mean, they might get all this hype and they seem like they're doing fantastic, but they're not. So we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that there's people out there, and if they need help, they look for it. Don't take it for granted.
Great insight on the shift of, the mentality, because I agree with that, Rob. I agree that man, college athletes growing up, probably in your era, Cliffy, where, Butch Woolfolk and all these guys from U of M, you knew who they were. One of my high school players when I was a kid signed at Michigan, and we used to love watching him. He was a wideout, probably got, maybe a catch a game, but he was on the field. Michigan was a big deal. And man, these kids were totally inaccessible. You only knew him as hey, I think he's number 42 on the team. You didn't know. Now, all of a sudden, man, in 15 seconds, you're in their feed, commenting them, trying to get them to interact with you and talk with you. That's a very different world.
Yeah.
Cliffy, what's your take on that?
I think it struck me when you said, wow, these athletes are getting, you could consider getting bullied, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't thought about it in that, that description, and it's true, right? I mean, it's true. I think, and it's not just the athletes, right? It's any GM, any owner, it's any coach, it's everybody. But the thing that we look at, and all level of athletics, I mean, it's happening in high school, right? I mean,
for sure.
the same thing's happening in high school, and maybe not even in sport. It's happening in in all other areas. And as resiliency and self worth and belief in oneself, it's something that I do believe is something that we as I guess society and institutions need to really be aware of, and I guess look at interventions, or just, well, how do we assess it? How about that? How can we assess how this person's handling this situation? And I am interested in that area. I've actually even talked with some companies who are trying to figure out how do we measure resiliency, and really how that plays out into life and performance. And I don't mean just sport performance. I mean, like the auto industry, do they do a really good job at looking at each individual section of their, I guess, plants, and how those people, whether they're resilient or not, and how they perform. Are they high performers? Are they not high performers? What language do they use? Through email and text. I don't mean they read their emails or texts, but they can like scrub company wide and keywords, and find out how that, I guess, is measured against their performance and resiliency on assessment. So it is something I'm somewhat passionate about, and I do think in the, I guess, student athlete world, with people think they have it the best, but as Trent, you mentioned earlier in the show, it is so much more goes into it than just showing up for that game. I mean, it's the classes, the extra work, study halls, and then maybe not even having any money to go out to dinner. So we just need to be aware of that, and find out, and try to put things in place so where we can help them assess and help.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Let's talk a little bit about Schmitty's real quick. I mean, Schmitty's has a unique product categorized into the smokeless tobacco category, which I didn't really realize actually until talking to a few of your team members, is that very restrictive on advertising marketing in this space. So this NIL thing all of a sudden becomes very interesting because you have a bunch of users in that space. It's a high user demographic, and you're trying to get the name out there, and you're seeing a lot of products now that catch a lot of fire because of social media performers, influencers that are out there putting things into the market, and it's amazing. And certainly when you have something that's going to help someone alleviate some challenge and some addictions, I like the idea. This is it's a potential NIL for good right here with Schmitty's Herbal Snuff right here as they develop the product. We'll be coming back in about 6 months talking about the success of Schmitty's.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. But it is an interesting thing, and we are actually working on the I guess marketing advertising side, because we are a tobacco-free, nicotine-free, alternative to tobacco. We are not tobacco. So the problems you run into on different sites, the web and print media, is because we still look like a tobacco. They in how it it appears. It's still in a tin and a puck. They're hesitant, and we're doing some things and trying to educate them, because we should be able to go out and go the World Series brought to you by Schmitty's Herbal Snuff and Pouches, because we're not a tobacco company. Of course, tobacco companies can't do that. So when you look at now, because we're unable to do that at the moment, but we should be able to, if that makes sense. It's really a lot of logistics to go into things, right?
Yeah,
a lot of hurdles, and I'm learning that in business. I'll tell everybody right now. Any athletes that are watching, and in baseball. So if you're 1 for 3 and 3 for 10 in baseball, right, you're a Hall of Famer. If you do that your whole career, you're in the Hall of Fame. You're $200-300 million player. You're going to end up making all that money. In business, I've learned over the last year plus that if you're like 1 for 50 going into getting things done, you're like you're going to be a Hall of Famer. If you're 1 for 50, there is so much failure involved, and people try to educate people. And I've been at some conferences and meeting with like the C-store owners, like the convenience store owners want you to have distribution. The distributors want you to have C-stores. I mean, and anybody who knows me out there, at times I just have to just say, I go right to it. So I had this guy who has 1,500 C-stores, and I had a big distributor. And I'm like, okay, guys, help me out here. I'm not, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You want this distribution. Distributor, you want the C-stores. You like our product. What is going on? How do we get this done? I didn't get the deal. But
Cliffy, I was ready to sign up, man. I thought you had to.
Yeah.
but it's really been a lot of fun. I've learned so much. And I tell you what, the funnest thing and was the first maybe month or so. And meeting with all these large companies and because we have partnerships, we have a lot of different things we're trying to do was all these acronyms that all these guys were using. And I'm in there, this is my first time after I've been in baseball for 30 years basically. And I honestly, I would say 5 times a meeting, I would have to stop people and go, can you help me out and tell me what that means? And so they would do it. And you know what? There's good humans in the world because I think people really was like, whoa, wait a minute, this guy's really trying to learn. And they went out of their way. And I think it's not just because I was an athlete or, past working in sports, because humans are innately, most are good people. And they're like, wow, this guy's showing such interest and really wants to learn this, that most of the people I was meeting with, and we're talking some really large, multi-billion-dollar companies. These leaders in these companies were like, oh, wow, okay. And they took interest in that. They wanted that. So any athletes out there watching that, as you get going, ask the questions. You don't have to know. You do not have to know the answer or even know what they're talking. It's kind of charming to them. And they feel good because most people do want to help people. I think after a month of it, they got maybe tired of it. But but I tell you, it's been really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you definitely have to check your ego at the door. And I think it's, one of the huge things of athletes that most people don't get is that athletes are absolute hyper learners, right? They learn very quickly. In fact, your success is based on learning something, being able to adapt to it, and then execute it at game speed. And you got 45 seconds. Go, Cliffy. You just showed me how to do it once, right? Right. But now in 45 seconds, this play's going to happen and we need you to do this now. And you're like, okay, here we go. I might muck it up, but I'm going to give it my best,
100%. I think another thing that benefits athletes as they go on is, we learn our game plan, right? Like I said, it takes, whatever, it took me a month or so to finally start understanding things. So, like in football, we have a new game plan. Let's say for football, as soon as the game's over with on Saturday, we have you check in with the trainers on Sunday, and then boom, you have your game plan given to you for the next week, and you start kind of going on. That by Wednesday, and I believe all athletes, most people in general, once you would learn the game plan, so hopefully I kind of have it down and distance tendencies, formations, what guys are going to, special alerts, kind of just how you break the other team down, key plays, key performers. When this guy's in this position, you kind of learn all that. Once you learn that, let's say on Wednesday, I kind of felt like I had it down. And again, I was an inside backer, so I had a little bit more awareness. What I had to have more awareness. Then, and I think most athletes are like this, your curiosity comes in. Okay, then I learned the game plan, how coaches are trying to scheme this. And then I'm like, okay, I'm curious as, I just, and the same thing in business. Just I'm a curious person, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what if I take this angle versus that angle in this play, or alignment? I'm normally on a 2 shade, but if I go 2+ here, how does that change the view of the quarterback where I'm at? So business also, once you get things down, I think athletes in general, period, in business, and curiosity is great, but I think we have to get the basics down before we can start reaching and trying to try other things. Let's learn the basics. Once we learn the basics for the game plan, then I can start being really curious and finding out if there are better ways.
Yeah, Chase, I love, Cliffy, that you talked about like this. Sunday to Wednesday, it's like, it's like drinking through the fire hose of learning, right? It's a whole new scheme this week in a different team, and you got 4 days. And by Wednesday, we got to have it all dialed in because you need the recovery Thursday, Friday to be ready to go on Saturday. And, when I had Chase Minifield on my Winners Find a Way show, and he talked about hey man, when you're a scout guy and then they tell you on Wednesday you're going, they do everything Sunday, Monday, Tuesday with the other team members. And then they finally decide, like, yeah, he's not going to be ready. He's not going to be healthy. So you're a go. Like, wait a minute, man. They all got the 4 days and now I'm host here. Like, now you're trying to like do everything in 2 days. And it's like, whoa, and you don't get any reps because now we don't have any kind of contact. We got no practice left in that. So it's a challenge, man, but it is fast learning and it's so important. And, it's great for these athletes to understand that, hey, this NIL thing, kind of tip of the week here, right? Like, be curious. Find out about what's out there. Find out what your local community who wants to be involved. Find out, how you could structure a deal of a monthly recurring revenue of a few $100s to work with a brand and do some things and take a partnership and help that brand gain value. Meanwhile, you're getting some walk around money and learn. And as you get really good at this, people are willing to do more. They're willing to pay more. There's ways to earn more through some programs like we offer. I mean, and so there are a lot of things out there, but I think it starts with curiosity, Cliffy. You can't put the blinders on and say, hey, this is the only way.
True. Real well said.
Rob, man, that's Cliffy bringing the noise, man. He's ready for the national championship, bro. It's all about Husky land now.
Hopefully when people see this, Washington will have another one.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll have one hopefully where you're holding the trophy up. Trent, I don't know if you could be in Michigan if you've been quiet about that, even though you didn't go to Michigan, if you're kind of rooting for them, but we're rooting for Cliffy.
Yeah, we're rooting for Cliffy. That's for sure. State of Michigan is going to probably be behind the Wolverines pretty good. We're still trying to recover from the Lions Dallas debacle. So we're still trying to get over that one. Campbell's
going to have a fit on that one.
Yeah, I'm worried about that guy blowing a gasket, but like he is. So far, this is one of those things. I think, we've talked about athletes, Cliffy, but as longtime coaches, these athletes, when I talk to people about this. And I've done all these interviews for my book and the podcast and stuff. The people that have been influential in others' lives as their coaches, do you have somebody in your life that has that? Because I don't want kids in the NIL world to miss that there's going to be adults that come around you and support you and they want to do well for you. They've had some success. They want to pass on that knowledge, mentor. Like Cliffy said, like, the best in the world will be patient with you. They see that you want to learn. They want to come alongside. Did you have somebody in your life like that was just impactful while you were there?
Yeah. I mean, Coach Don James, he was, great coach who's been around. I mean, he's the one who gave Nick Saban his first job. I mean, that's Don James. And, in Saban's book, he wrote about Coach James for sure. Coach James, first was a great human, cared about the athlete before he cared about the player. That makes sense. And I'll say that for Carol, his wife, too, who I'm still, keeping contact with. Coach James, I was lucky enough to talk at his service. I was asked by the family. What I learned from him is that you're a human, you're a person before you're a player. I saw the way he treated his wife. It was so powerful. It was just like, wow, and how he treated at our recruiting functions, and she was part of it just as much as he was. I do know that he was a quick story on him, if I may. I'll try to be quick. My grandfather, as I mentioned earlier, my grandfather was very part of our group. He almost went to every practice I had at Washington. So the Roseville practice in Washington at 92. So this is the year after that. We should have got 2 national championships, but we had some problems with Billy Joe Hobart taking some money, and it'd be legal now. But anyway.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, my grandfather, Coach James, you could never sit behind his tower. So he had a tower on the south end zone or on the south 50-yard line, and nobody could ever get behind him. There's always security there. And it was somewhat open practices, but not really. But, family, of course, could all go. Well, one day, from bull practice in Washington, Seattle, it was crazy. It was a sunny day, which never happens. So, but the sun's setting really far to the south now, right? Because it's in December. So where my grandpa always sits with his little cushion, and everybody knew my grandpa, just so you know, he'd give mints to everybody. It was just fun. It was great. I'll be quick. So I'm looking up and I see my grandpa because the sun's nice. He picks up his little bag and he's walking around the west end zone to go sit on the south side. Well, this is my, whatever, 4th year there. Coach, my grandpa knows you can't sit behind Coach James, right? Well, all of a sudden, it gets about to the 20-yard line on the south side of the stadium. And I'm like, what is going on? Well, security's coming from both sides. And I see Coach James. And when he grabs his blowhorn, that's not a good thing. You know,
Right.
Normally you're getting kicked out of practice. Clifford, go run the stairs, fighting, whatever. He leans over around his tower. It's got a top on it. And he goes, hey, nothing stops. Nobody stops. And he goes, and the whole field stops because the players know. He got his freaking his megaphone. You're in trouble. And he goes, security. Well, the 2 security guards stop. And he just goes in front of everybody. He can sit wherever he wants.
Wow.
It was, and it just said, I said, he almost went to every single practice.
Yeah.
And that's Coach James in a nutshell. He might not even know. I didn't know he even noticed my grandfather.
That shows a lot for him. It also shows a lot for your grandfather too.
Yeah.
Have that respect of Coach
So,
James, which is awesome.
Coach James had a lot with me. I had a coach when I was really young, Joe Williams, who taught me in Little League football that there's nothing I can't do.
Yeah.
Period. Doesn't matter. You can't even use the word.
Yeah.
I couldn't play. I couldn't even use the word can't.
Yep. Eliminated.
If I didn't hand my goals in by Friday, I couldn't play on Saturday. So I had to write goals for every game and kind of goal setting and how to visualize and what to do. And this is at a, 8, 9, 10-year-old level.
Wow.
And it stuck with me throughout. So Joe Williams was a big, and of course my pops, my dad. Seems like everybody I'm talking about right now is dead though.
Well, listen, man, it's the life,
they
right? And I do see. I'll tell you what, though. When you say that, having coached with Coach Saban, some of those things you bring up, like Coach Saban is a great human, right? And he's living some of those traits through Saban of Don James. Like Don James, and probably there was a Shula or whoever taught Don James. It perpetuates, because when we have great coaches, for kids out there, you grab the best of those people around you, and they're humans. They've got some bad parts too. Like, I get it. Like, we're not all perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But when you see the really good parts and you go, wow, I just so much admire the way Cliffy manages relationships with his team members. Like, I got to do that better. Like, it inspires me. It always motivated me as a coach to be doing that with my players as well. And so the impact it's not a small wave, man. It's a nice size wave. It's not a tsunami. No one's getting wrecked on this thing, but you're having significant impact. And as athletes, this is the benefit of you are going to find great people along the way. Keep the radar up and look for them, because they will steer you in the right direction.
That's a great way to end it. That's a Trent's tip of the day there.
There we go.
So we want to thank everybody. Cliffy, thanks so much. This has been an awesome show. We look for us each week. You can go to Sports Epreneur and find us. We're across all the different podcast networks, and looking forward to bringing you great education on NIL. And Trent, as always, it's great work with you, buddy.
Thanks, Rob. As always, James Clifford, special guest today. Thanks for joining us, Cliffy. Go Huskies. Let's go.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Anytime. Thank you.